I am your host, Lia Dunlap, and you are listening to the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where we help intentional leaders clarify their purpose and next steps to create a work and life of significance. Today, I am thrilled to bring a man so confident and full of life that he can enter a stage to the dulcet tones of Shania Twain's I Feel Like a Woman. My guest today is James Robilotta. He is an author, speaker, personal coach, MC, and entrepreneur. His book, Leading Imperfectly, is available wherever people buy books. He speaks internationally to willing and unwilling attendees about authentic leadership, vulnerability, and storytelling. His clients include Amex, GE, and many others. James is also a life coach, and he hosts his own event called Living Imperfectly Live. He holds this event multiple times a year, and his goal is to help attendees start living the life we say we want to live. To learn more, you can visit him on his website, jamestrobo.com. Don't worry about writing that down. We'll have that link below for you to use. All right, so I am very committed as an intuitive business architect to helping people to fulfill their purpose and look to find the alignment between their real life purpose, or what I like to call their unique life purpose, and their business genius. And in doing that, I know that helps them to serve the world in a bigger way. So I'm curious, James, how do you find alignment with your purpose and business genius in your work?
Yeah, for sure. I think I find it in a number of different ways. And this is so beautiful what you talk about, Leah. Thank you so much for everybody that you serve in this community. There's a number of ways that I do it. First off, I think it is in the way that I sell. My selling is all based on relationships. Like I've never sent a cold email or cold call or anything like that. It's all about shaking hands and kissing babies, right? And having conversations with individuals and getting to know their story and learning how I may be able to help them keep writing a really cool story. And that is true with the leaders that I serve in corporations that I speak to. That's true at colleges that I work with, where I'm helping students recognize that they are good enough right now to be incredible leaders. And that's true also at my live events, where I'm holding individuals accountable to the life they say they want to live. That consistency of character is so important. And I think for me, the through line is authenticity and vulnerability. That power is so real, right? Because when we see ourselves in somebody else, we believe that we can. And so I make sure that I'm sharing maybe even more stories that I'm asking the people that I'm with to share, just because I want them to be like, hey, how you doing, a fellow human being here, right? Like we've all been there. But everybody's also leaving breadcrumbs. I don't think we need to clean up our mess, because it's our mess that helps people find the path that we created.
I love that. And I think that that's such an important piece of the puzzle, if you will. When we talk about storytelling is, oftentimes we'll say success leaves clues. So does our purpose, I say. We really do kind of ooze out who we're meant to be, even when we're not really fully embracing it ourselves. Like people can see that, right? They can register that there's something about us. And then when we're not authentic, as you said, there's a disconnect, right? Something's not right. And we can't really make that connection, because even though, what is that old adage, what you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you say. It's great to hear you put that in a way that you're actually, servicing people to find that story for themselves and to really create and live the life they want. So tell me a little bit more about how your work you feel is impacting and having a positive impact on the world, especially right now in our current environment.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. Fascinating times that we're in right now. So, Leah, I think one of my main goals in life is to make people pause. And just pause for a minute. Just pause for a minute to, in a space where we are constantly in the hamster wheel of life, of all of our shoulds and all of our coulds, and comparing ourselves to everybody else. Are we writing a story that we actually care about? But we never can tell if we're writing a story unless we pause. And so there's a lot of power in that, creating that space for somebody to like, hey, just take a second to reflect. Let's reflect. Are you truly living out your purpose? Are you following your passion? Or are you doing what you think you're supposed to do, right? As a leader, are you who you're supposed to be, or are you yourself? So when we help people pause, it makes people pause and take a moment to be like, yes, I'm doing the right thing. Let me double down. Or, you know what? Maybe I'm not quite in alignment right now. And so how can I start to try to figure out how to pivot? But if we never pause, then we can never really change direction, or it just takes so much longer, right? It takes so much longer. Like when you think about a ship, it takes a lot longer for a ship that is in motion to turn than it does a ship that's staying still. It can't just like put those side thrusters on. So the same thing here.
I love it. And that moment of understanding that in these times, as we were talking about before we kind of went live here, was there are always going to be moments. And if we're cognizant enough, we can take advantage of the opportunity to pause, to really dig down deep and say, what is it I want? Which I love. That's, part of what your event is about, is what do we want? It's such an important question. I ask my clients that all the time. Like, they'll sit down, and I don't know about you, you probably in your event, you'll hear this too, where people just start talking about all the things that are going wrong and that they don't want. And my first question, and any client that's ever worked with me knows this, it's like, okay, great. Now, what do you want? Because I've listened to you for 20 minutes and all I've heard is all the things you don't want. So I love the idea that the pause allows us to stop and think about, where do we want to go? Where do we want to take our ship next? And having that ability to take this time on, right? I mean, so many people probably are pausing and then backpedaling or holding still. But as you said, pause to reflect, but continue to move forward as well. I think that's a really good piece of advice for people that are listening is, it's okay to pause. If you do it purposefully, you can actually take advantage of that pause and leap forward. So
yeah, absolutely.
That leads me to my next question for you, because I think that this is a great segue to the idea of like, what is that vision? What do we want? So I'm curious for you. So what is your big vision for your work in the world? What do you ultimately, the end of the days are here and you're ready to look back at what you did. What is that big vision you want to see that you've created?
Yeah, for sure. I live my life based on what I want to be said in my eulogy, which is a little morbid, but that's cool. But it's still true, right? It informs the way that I interact with individuals. It informs the decisions that I make and things like that. And so when I think about like, what's my last job going to be, right? I don't know maybe what my next job's going to be or whatever, but what do I want my last job to be? I really want to be a host. I want to be the host of a show. It's a show where we have deep talks and we also laugh a lot. And just to show individuals the power of vulnerability, and that vulnerability doesn't have to be this crazy weighted thing, that there's power in just some of these stories. We don't even recognize it sometimes when we're being vulnerable. But if we talked more, if we shared more, if we talked and shared more, then what could we alleviate in others? And so that's really what I love to do. And that's the dream, is I want to be a host. I see it on a TV show, a Netflix show, somewhere across between like Letterman's My Next Guest Needs No Introduction and Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. So that's really what I would love to do. That's the vision, because that gets this message out to the most people. I will keep speaking. I will keep holding my own events and things like that for sure, because I love the rush of a live audience, or as we are now, a virtually live audience. Not quite the same rush, but it's still there. And so I love that. So that'll never go away. But how can we ultimately get our message to more individuals? And that's what I'm doing.
I love it. This piece too, as I was mentioning, as I was listening to you, and the Oracle is saying, I know that there's a story about how James wrote, I could just vision you sitting on the couch in your family's gatherings and holding court. So tell me, is that an actual vision, or is it just a sense of who you were? Tell me, was there a time in your life, in your early ages, where you realized like you were good at this? You were really good at bringing that story out in people.
Yeah, I think I realized it in college. I went to college and I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist, but then I was putting too many jokes in my scientific papers. My teacher was like, this may not be for you. I was like, I think I agree. But yeah, so I was a student leader though. And what I loved was those moments that I got to have late at night with people sitting around the residence hall, or I went to school by the ocean. We go walk along the beach in the Atlantic Ocean and just have cool, deep conversations. And that carried on into my professional life and just having cool late night conversations. So yeah, it's something that I realized that I was a good listener, and a different kind of listener than most people were. I was the kind of listener that I always wanted to have for myself, but didn't always get. So, yeah.
I love it. The kind of listener I always wanted for myself. Tell me more about that. What was missing in the listening that you've been bringing to the table now as in your own right in the work that you do?
Yeah. I think that for me, first off, I learned that I have low self-esteem, which is interesting because I know you introduced me as someone who's super confident. And I mean, I can bring the confidence and I have confidence in certain things. Like, I mean, when speaking, yeah, I'm up there and I'm proud of what I'm doing. And that's really cool. It's a place where I feel safe, which is ironic. But anyway, but there's other places where I have a low self-esteem. And a lot of it's around taking compliments because when I was younger, there were individuals that would always be like, oh, James, sit next to me next to class. You're in fun. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. And there would be women who I'd be interested in. They'd be like, oh my God, James, you're so cool. Do you have any brothers? I was like, I don't. Well, I do, but they're way older. And why would you want to talk to them? Or they'd be like, oh my gosh, is there like, is there anybody who's just like you that's out there? I'm like, yeah, one person and he's single. No? Cool. So I used to get all these compliments, but then no follow through from those compliments, right? People be like, I want to sit next to you, but I don't want to invite you over to my house. Or I'm having a party. I'm not going to invite you, but I'm going to laugh at your jokes. I'm going to tell you you're cool, but I'm not going to show you that I want to be with you. And that caused me to really feel hurt and feel like, and not to trust people as much because it was like, cool, you say things and you don't mean them because you don't follow through. And so the way that I listen is reflective in that pain because it's like, I'm going to let you know that I'm listening. Like, I'm going to ask you cool follow-up questions. We're going to go, this ain't no mom and pop small talk conversation, right? Like, I care about the weather, but buckle up after that because we're going in.
Yeah, I love that. There's something really, I think there's such power in being able to listen deeply to another human being and to be listened to at that level where you get the chance to be held and seen and heard. It's different. You're right. It's different to be able to look at someone and reflect back to them what you're hearing them say. I also think it's interesting because I think it helps people give a chance to be vulnerable, as you were saying. Like, we don't often go beyond the weather unless we feel like it's safe. So what a gift that you've been given to yourself by sharing with others that listening power. You know, it's a beautiful gift to the world. I think that is truly a powerful impact that you're making. And it's one of those things, I'm guessing you probably feel this as well, that, you know, you may never even know how impactful that your listening is in the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had someone years ago who I had one conversation with and apparently was running around telling everybody about me. I had no idea. And she disappeared. And like, I was like, oh, okay. I thought we were going to, work together and all these things. And apparently whatever I said in that one conversation was all she needed. She went off and exploded her business and had great success. And we met up years later at some kind of networking event. And she dragged someone across the room to tell me how she's just been spouting all about me. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Honestly. Yeah. Right? Because we have our own, like you said, we have our own insecurities about what we think is happening, but we really never know. We can't be so far away from it to see how much impact. And I really see in you that your commitment to do that is going to really be the one big, beautiful thing you leave this world with, is to be heard and seen and recognized in a valuable way. So I am so grateful that you got to come and spend some time with us here today. And, I really would love to hear your final thoughts about what you would want to see for those people that are listening that are struggling with looking at how do they be better, how to become better leaders and be more aligned with who they really authentically are. What's that one thing you'd want them to know?
I mean, it's cheesy, but I love cheese, Leah. Let's be honest real quick. Okay, I'm a cheese fanatic. I eat dairy on the daily. But it's that you're enough, that you are enough. But we consistently write these stories in our head. What are the stories that you are writing right now that is holding you back from greatness? What are the barriers that you are building that aren't actually in between where you want to go and where you are, right? Like I'm a professional speaker. I talk to other speakers that are like, well, I could become a speaker after I write my book. No, you don't need to write a book to do this. You don't need X to do Y. You can just go to Y. There are very few things. Like, for example, if you want to be a doctor, please get an MD first, okay? That is something. Please put that in the way. But like in so many other things, aspirations that you have, you don't need to intentionally build barriers. You don't need this to do this. You are good enough right now. But you're telling yourself stories of like, well, I'm not hot enough, cool enough, rich enough, funny enough, successful enough, happy enough, whatever enough. Each one of these things is a different weight that you carry, but you owe it to yourself to live a lighter life. Because right now you are in fact enough.
I love it. I love that so much. Yes, out of the mouth of James Robilotta. And I will second and triple that. Yes, 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 people, you are enough and you don't need to put barriers in your way of becoming who you are authentically meant to be. Because as I like to say, you are here on purpose and you are absolutely enough. I'm Lia Dunlap, the Oracle on Purpose, and this is the Oracle on Purpose podcast. Today's guest, James Robilotta, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you, and thank you for what you do for everyone else. I appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Oracle on Purpose show. If you found value in this episode, we'd appreciate you leaving a comment. Also, you can subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't yet. If you'd like to get clear on your highest vision and next steps, go to oracleonpurpose.com. See you next week.